Good afternoon. Welcome to the Midday Mull for Tuesday, the 23rd of January. As we read Nehemiah chapter 13, we see problems beginning amongst the returned exiles in Jerusalem. They realize that the people have been mingling with the surrounding nations, and despite what God has said that they oughtn't to, it has been going on. And it wasn't just the everyday people, it was the leadership as well. In verse 4 we read, Eliashib the priest had been put in charge of the storerooms of the house of our God. He was closely associated with Tobiah, who was a foreigner, a non-Jew, and he had provided him with a large room in the temple. It was right at the top there, these associations that were undermining the sanctity of the temple and the people of God. Nehemiah also writes, I learned that the portions assigned to the Levites had not been given to them, and that all the Levites and musicians responsible for the services had gone back to their own fields. So the people that were supposed to be serving at the temple weren't there because they'd gone home to make ends meet. Why? Because what had ought to have been given to them, their payment essentially, hadn't been made. He says, in those days I saw people in Judah treading the wine presses on the Sabbath, and the surrounding nations were coming and trading in Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. And things were beginning to go wrong. And Nehemiah makes the point in verse 6, but while all this was going on, I was not in Jerusalem. He'd been summoned back to Babylon, to the emperor, and while he was away, things had unraveled. And as I read that, I thought, it probably wasn't the first time things like that had happened, and it certainly wasn't the last time. And we see this time and again where there's some dynamic person who manages to get people organized and enthusiastic, and things are going well, and that person leaves and it all unravels. And I've seen it in churches, I've seen it in house groups, a dynamic house group leader, thriving house group, they are transferred, and next thing you know, the house group's disappeared. And it's not only within the church, I've seen it in things like a scout troop. An enthusiastic scouter gets things going, and there's all the people joining, and there's stuff happening, and they're going on camps, and that person is transferred. 6 months later, there's an occasional meeting, and most of the people have left. And we see it in organizations and structures as well. If a headmaster or headmistress leaves a school and you don't replace them with the right person, very quickly things begin to unravel. And as I read that, I thought, it is so much part of our existence. How do we stop it? And the vision for the church is that we won't have just one enthusiastic person. The New Testament vision is that everybody in the church brings something. And so you've got 100 people, there's 100 contributions to the service. And one person does the reading, one person does the greeting, one person does the tea, one person does the organizing, one person does the flowers, one person does the preaching, one person does, and everybody brings something. So if any one person leaves, there's a small gap, but the other 99 people continue bringing their gifts forward. And so it's a challenge to us that we should not end up in Nehemiah's position where we're riding on one person, but we need to all be bringing what we can and contributing whatever it is we can do to the life of the church so that it will continue to thrive. And if we or anyone else leaves, it will continue to thrive because everyone else will be bringing their gifts. So be challenged by that thought. And as we do that, the Spirit works through us, and we are all blessed.